בקרוב תזרח השמש, נדע ימים יפים מאלה, הלב נלחם בדאגות. כולם יחזרו הביתה, נחכה להם למטה, הלוואי נדע בשורות טובות. כי עם הנצח לעולם לא מפחד, אפילו כשקשה לראות. כולם ביחד, אף אחד פה לא בודד, שישרפו המלחמות. עם ישראל חי, אם לא נשכח תמיד להיות מאוחדים. עם ישראל חי, בעליות בירידות, גם בשעות הכי קשות. הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו, אז מי יכול עלינו? כי אין לנו עוד מדינה. תעשה שלום בינינו, שמור על ילדינו, כי לא אבדה האמונה. עם ישראל, עם ישראל חי. עם ישראל חי. אור ארצי נחלתנו, לא תיפול כעת רוחנו, מסביב ברזל של חרבות. ויונה תפרוס כנפיים, התקווה בת שנות 2000, עוד נצא לשיר ברחובות. כי עם הנצח לעולם לא מפחד, אפילו כשקשה לראות. כולם ביחד, אף אחד פה לא בודד, שישרפו המלחמות. עם ישראל חי, אם לא נשכח תמיד להיות מאוחדים. עם ישראל חי, בעליות בירידות, גם בשעות הכי קשות. הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו, אז מי יכול עלינו? כי אין לנו עוד מדינה. תעשה שלום בינינו, שמור על ילדינו, כי לא אבדה האמונה. הקדוש ברוך הוא שומר עלינו, אז מי יכול עלינו? כי אין לנו עוד מדינה. תעשה שלום בינינו, שמור על ילדינו, כי לא אבדה האמונה. עם ישראל, עם ישראל חי. כי עם ישראל חי.
Shalom, shalom, folks. How you guys are doing today? Hope you guys are having fun. I hope you guys are having a good time. Today is kind of a better day, I would say. Yeah, but gloomy day. But it was warm and it was okay. But I prefer a little more warmer so that I could have done my lawn mow. And because the grasses start, growing longer and longer, my yard looked very bad. So, well, I couldn't able to do it. The only chance and the only way that I can do it by maybe next week or something. Well, anyhow, guys, let us talk about today about the Mark, unpacking the Mark. One of the brilliant chapters, Gospel in the Mark. I will let you know because we saw yesterday uh, about the Mark's gaslighting and the Mark's rhetoric, how Mark was bringing Jesus as a son of God, through his examples, throughout his gospel, how he was presenting. That is the main thing that we are going to talk about today. We're going to continue on Mark. Let us dive without any further ado, but I want to do the regular disclaimer again, once again, my dear folks. I'm telling to you guys, this is not targeted to a group of people or individuals or any sect or any particular denomination or anything, but this is very sensitive, very very sensitive. People may agree, people may not agree, people do not want to listen. That's what it is, because the truth just comes plain and simple. It doesn't decorate itself, and truth doesn't need any decoration. The truth is truth. Truth is always bitter. Truth is tasteless. It is very very raw core, but that's what the truth is. I got to give you the truth, whether you like it, you do not like it, whether you admire it, you don't admire. I am not worried about it at all. It is up to you to follow and ask your questions, like I did. Reinvented myself. Once I was in a certain place, when I came to know what is the truth, I do not want to leave the truth, because you may not be having friends, you may not be having any groups, you may not be having, the whole world will be against you. But my dear friend, stick to that. Stick to the truth. What is the truth? Absolutely, absolute. It's going to release you. It's going to relieve you. It's going to get you one day, not today, for sure. One day, it's going to get you somewhere. So that's what I'm doing, and it's up to you to go and find the truth. But I got to tell you, okay? So if anyone wants to talk to me, if anyone wants to ask me any questions, please feel free to talk to me and ask me anytime. I mean, whenever you are, okay? All right, let's dive into the chapters. Mark, unpacking Mark, the Gospel of Mark. As we knew, New Testament has four Gospels: Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. We already compared the Matthew and Luke, the discrepancies between Matthew and Luke. There are so many stories, so many genealogy problems, birth narratives, and the travel narratives. We have seen that. We have been through that. Right now, we're going to see Mark. Mark is one of the brilliant gospel among the four gospel. It's one of the brilliant books in the New Testament. Though it's not kept in the first book as Matthew, but this is the first gospel ever made. So every gospel, Matthew, Mark, John, I mean Matthew, Luke, John, they only copied from here. There is no other. This is the main resources for Mark. Mark, in turn, may or may not, because Paul's letter was already released before Mark. So it could have been there already. I mean, Mark might have gotten some ideas, but still, then Mark is the raw first category of gospel, and is very, very brilliant, very smart. Right? Whoever wrote the gospel, it's not Mark. Absolutely, I know that one. Whoever wrote the gospel was so brilliant, so smart, because he was in a junction where he was supposed to make a trend. He was a trend setter. He was changing the complete total view of Jewish people to, the Gentile verse. He was making the Gentiles to follow. At the same time, he was also making the Jewish people to look into this section. So it was a brilliant gospel. It was a Mark who started all these things. If you see that, if you learn that, if you study that, I mean, the way that you should study, definitely you know what I'm talking. Brilliant gospel, Mark, and the way that he narrated is unbelievable. The way that he was gaslighting all through his book, is fantastic, phenomenal. Let us go and continue what we left from yesterday. In the Mark, okay, if you read from chapter 1 to 8, 8 chapters, you'll be see the Son of God, how Mark is bringing or painting the picture of the Son of God. You know, uh, Jesus was casting demons, and the demons declaring him as Son of God. Yesterday we saw that in the first book, the first page itself, Mark declares that
There is a voice is from the heavens declares when the dove came upon Jesus when he was baptized by the John the Baptist. There is a voice heard saying, "He is a son of God. He is my son." He is my son. So look at that. Mark takes the word, takes that narrative, take that thing to until his last chapters. He was trying to force through people. Number one, casting out demons. When the demons were afraid in the Mark Gospel, demons were terrified, and always demons say, "You are the Son of God." Demons could able to easily recognize that he was the Son of God. So they immediately will tell that. So number one, he was pushing it through the demons that Jesus was the Son of God. Because he didn't write any narrative of birth narrative. Mark didn't write. I do not know. Maybe he didn't have enough sources or anything. Maybe after Mark, Matthew came like 15, 20 years. Then probably he might have gathered something or whatever, but Mark didn't get it. But actually, Mark was supposed to have those things more than Matthew or Luke or someone else. But Mark didn't write any narrative. So, but his Jesus was already grown Jesus, already a grown man. So Mark in the first page itself, Israel that a dove came and recognized Jesus as the Son of God, and then in first 8 chapters, demons are declaring Jesus was a Son of God, and also the crowd followed him, believing in his miracles. There was a lot of miracles that Jesus was doing, and healing the people and resurrecting. So many things he was doing there. So people were interested in the healing. So they were following and proclaiming him as a Son of God, because no one has did at that time that healing the people, raising the lame, healing the blind, making the deaf to hear. No one was doing so vigorously at the time except Jesus. So people were started believing and people started, following him, proclaiming he as a Son of God. But Jesus, every time, whenever who comes and tells him that he is a Son of God, Jesus denies it. Denies it means he would tell, "Do not tell this to anybody." Don't know what is the idea of that one. He said that not to tell to anyone. Why not? Why not we tell to everybody? He is the Son of God. Let everybody know, right? But in this story, Mark's right. Whoever the Mark wrote, the author writes that Jesus told them not to tell that to anyone. And then secondly, the third, Jesus was teaching and striking messages. You know, uh, so people are listening to who is this guy? How come this message is coming through from him? There should be something, someone else, but probably he's the Son of God. So they were astonished. They were already, no one knew at the time. Trust me, at the time when the Mark was writing the gospel, no one knew, no one declared, no one claimed Jesus was the Son of God, Jesus was the Messiah. Nobody knew. Not the crowd, not the public, not the sick people, not the healed people, not his disciples, not the Roman people, or not his own family members. No one knew who Jesus was. Whenever somebody claims, Jesus denies us, asks them to not to tell to anyone. That was Jesus in Mark. So striking messages, was completely throw the people out of mind, asking him and wondering who is this person. Mark astonished. Jesus goes to Nazareth, the people to be surprised. People are like, who is this guy? He wasn't the son of the carpenter. How come he got this much knowledge? Who gave this knowledge? He was surprising his own hometown. Nobody knew who he was. No one knew. No one was new. Okay. Jesus leaders, or Jewish leaders, were thinking this guy should have been possessed by evil. That's why he's talking like that. I have seen people were possessed by evil. They always talk about Jesus all the time. They mock at the Jesus. They criticize Jesus because they're always possessed by the some devil. So Jewish people thought that this guy would have been possessed by Beelzebul. You might have heard this name, right? So they thought that Jewish people thought that these Jesus might have possessed by the devil. So no one believed, no one knew who Jesus was, according to Mark, when his time. So the family. Let's come to the family. We saw the disciples didn't believe him. We saw the people, public didn't believe him. We saw the sick people didn't believe him. We saw the Jewish people didn't believe him. And we are going to see the own family members thought that Jesus was gone crazy. So he is totally crazy. He is out of his mind. That's what his own family was thinking. Think about that, folks. Mark is telling the story no one knew. And now, who was he? This is where Mark, recognizing him, at least makes us to recognize that he was Jesus. So all these people are wondering who was he. So Mark wants to tell that he is to see Jesus. He was the Son of God. That's what he wants to bring. He is giving all these narratives instead of giving the birth narratives. Jesus was born, the Son of God was born, and then all the Magites went, the wise man went, and all the star went and stood in front of this Jesus house. Mark didn't write all these things. Mark was giving the incidents and the events happened at the time and making the people to believe it, making the people to, astonish and wonder. And they were claiming who this guy was. Who is this? Was it Jesus? Who was Jesus? Is he the Messiah or is he the Son of God? No one knew. So Mark is clearly telling Jesus is standing out of everybody. He was not the human being. He was doing miracles. Demons are afraid. People were following him behind him. Jesus' disciples couldn't believe what was happening. So he should be the Son of God, or he should be the Messiah. That's what Mark was trying to bring it down. Okay, Mark, why Jesus and the people didn't understand Jesus was God. Why people didn't understand? What was the problem? Because Jesus always tells in the Mark Gospel that do not tell to anyone, and he tries to keep it as a secret. So whenever comes to him and tells him, hey, you know what? You are the Son of God. He said, do not tell this to anybody. So people couldn't believe him that if he is God, why? What is the point that he could able to easily tell? So people were not believing him that he was the Son of God. In Mark chapter 4, Mark tells that nobody pays attention to him. No one pays attention to Jesus. In the Mark chapter 4, if you read, Mark tells that Jesus started telling parables. When he started telling the parables, like it is only to be revealed to the disciples, not to the public. I mean, why this? Why cannot he would tell everything? He was always telling in parables. People should not be knowing, but disciples should know. People should. So everything was kept under secret. Nothing was revealed out in this Gospel of Mark about Jesus when he was telling. So Jesus chose to teach the parables outsiders to outsiders. Why? Then why would he teach the parables to outsiders? Mark 4:11. Jesus talking in parables so that they might not understand, lest they will repent, and it be forgiven. Jesus teaching in parables so that they won't repent. This is Mark's motive. So, Jesus do not want to forgive sins at the time. That's a problem because he was trying to tell the gospel parables in a secret way, so that if these people would come to know, probably they would ask for repentance. They'll come for forgiving things. Jesus didn't want those things to happen. That's the motive of Mark to write the Gospels. You know. because there are certain things to be happen. So he didn't want it to do that. That's why he was telling in the parables, through the parables to the disciples. Everything was kept with secret. Jesus kept his identity, very secret. Nobody gets it. So why Mark's keeping the secret, the messianic secret? The key point in Mark comes in half of the way because he has been asking the disciple, "Don't you understand?" See, he will do all these things. And he asks the disciples, "What the people say about me? What do you guys think of me? Don't you understand who am I?" So he was asking the disciples, miracles happens with the blind man. This is one thing you should know. There is a miracle which is happening to the blind man. And Jesus heals him with the spit and the mud, and the man says he could see the trees walking. Here comes the blind man. Jesus was there. Jesus was trying to heal the blind man. What he did, he spit, you know, his saliva on the ground, and it made the paste of that mud, and he applies an ointment. He applies the paste on the blind man's eyes, and then he asks the blind man, he could able to see it or not. And the blind man say that he could see the people, but they're walking like trees. He could able to see some kind of shadow trees only. They're walking like a trees. But people walking around, but they look like trees. Jesus looks at him and he sees properly, this happen in stages. So Jesus healings always happens in stages, not in like instantly. It is always like a stages, slowly, talking, going through a point, and then do something, and then it comes up as a healing process. Always Jesus takes this healing process in stages. Okay, so the miracle happens with the blind man, right? So Jesus, it is a miracle. People came to see gradually. Jesus asked his disciple what the people say about them, right? And then disciples responded, John the Baptist, Elijah the prophet, and the Peter says that you are the Messiah. And Jesus says again, do not tell to anyone. Son of Man must go to Jerusalem and rejected by men and rejected from death. It is an interesting revelation in this place, folks. Very, very interesting revelation is going to come because Mark is revealing this to the common public in his writings. At the time of the first century in AD, no one wrote any book. Mark's book was totally a different. I said, that's what I'm telling. Mark was so brilliant, he was not giving any and all those details which he was not interested in, birth narrative, traveling, this and that. He took the Jesus as a son of God and he narrated everything in a way that he was narrating that, Jesus was hiding the secret, and he didn't want to, tell everything to the public. He was telling them in the parables so that he would not forgive them on the spot because he doesn't want to go through that. He has to go through a process. After that, everything will come to them. So he wasn't revealing everything at the time. So he had a plan, and then Mark was revealing that plan, and Mark was using everyone in the plan. So Mark was trying to setting a trend right now about Jesus. So he has to be very careful in writing his record, right? So because there is believers, because Jewish people believed him. Now Jewish people are thinking this guy looks like a crazy guy. His parents thought that he was gone crazy. Disciples didn't believe him in anything. Public people couldn't able to believe him. Whoever came and asked him, they said that you are the Son of God. Jesus denied. He said that no, don't tell to anybody. Don't go and tell anybody. But in spite of that, they go and tell it out, right? But Jesus was keeping everything secret because there is a process that he has to go through. After that, he wanted to reveal what was it, and then that was a Mark's plan. Mark was trying to set a trend that making Jesus as a son of God in his way of dealing that. He wasn't, see, Matthew and Luke, they took the genealogy. They went and tried to prove that David's son. He's the son of David. And they went and proved all the birth narratives. They went and did the virgin birth. So they were trying everything because virgin birth was told in Isaiah 7. So that's the same Messiah is here. So they were trying to prove that in Matthew and Luke. They were completely Greek oriented, Matthew and Luke. Mark was totally trying to setting a trend, trying to do something very brilliantly. That's what Mark is doing. So understand these points and know this one. I will come back and I'll reveal more about how Mark set the trend, what happened, and what was the trend set, and then how the Matthew, Luke, and John they copied from Mark and they wrote the gospel. I will come back to you guys next time when I see you guys, and we will explore more, and we will come to know what exactly Mark is trying to telling to us, and we will try to know what exactly Mark's agenda is. So, Shabbat Shalom. Talk to you guys soon. Bye bye.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ הכל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובר והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ הכל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובר בתפארה והוא עובר והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ הכל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ הכל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה בתפארה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה